Hello friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today we are going to do the anticipated releases for the last quarter of the year. Today I have a massive list for you guys. I have 34 books. The last video I think I did like this, I had 31 books and I swear it won't get bigger every single time. I just go through the list and whichever ones I find interesting I write down, and that's my process. So I do have 34 books. I am going to put the timestamps down below of all of the different genres that I have. Half of these, or more than half, I think, are fantasy or fantasy genre blends. And so you'll see a lot of fantasy stuff down in the timestamps, but you guys can skip around to whatever genres you are most interested in. There are definitely some of these that are more interesting than others, some that I know by heart what their synopses are, and others that I will just share with you briefly. Because I have 34 books, I will not be going into detail in a lot of these, but I will let you guys know what the genre is, what the publication date is, and then a short little precise synopsis of what the book is about. The genre that I'm going to start with is just straight fantasy, books that I don't really know if they fit into a fantasy genre blend. I just think of them as just general fantasy. The first of those is The Fury of the Gods by John Gwynne, which is the continuation of the Bloodsworn saga. So I have The Shadow of the Gods and The Hunger of the Gods. I have read both of those, and so I am curious to continue on with the Bloodsworn saga. If you all haven't heard of the Bloodsworn saga, you follow, I think it's 3 main characters, and each of them are in different strifes, different areas in this kingdom. It's a Nordic kingdom, and in the past they have had these massive gods. And so these gods are in the form of animals, and each one comes with different abilities. But these gods have died in the past, but there are still powers that are connected with their bones. And there are also still powers of these individuals within some people throughout the society as well. There are rumblings of war going on, and there are 2 main factions that are going to be battling for power. And with the 3 personalities or POVs that you follow throughout the story, you get to see all the different pieces of the kingdom coming together. It's very fascinating, very large scale, and I can't wait to get to the 3rd. The next book is Wind and Truth, which is Stormlight number 5. If you haven't heard of Stormlight Archive, I don't think I could give this story justice by giving you a short synopsis, but I will tell you that the first book, the main character of the first book, even though you follow multiple POVs, is Kaladin. And Kaladin is a slave in an empire that is at war. The humans are fighting another race of peoples, and they have been for generations. And as a slave, he is taken to participate as fodder for the fire, essentially, within this massive war. And throughout the story, you get to learn his backstory, how he got to where he is. You also get to learn about this intricate magic system that he does have some part to play in, and I just absolutely love this series. It is so much bigger than what I'm describing, but I absolutely love the characters Brandon Sanderson has created in these books, and I can't wait to continue Wind and Truth, even though I am terrified of where the story is going to go from here. Next is Led Luda, which is published on December 3rd. This is the sequel to Gog Magog. I actually already have a copy of Led Luda because the publisher was nice enough to give me one through NetGalley, and so I haven't read it yet, but I am excited. If you guys haven't heard of Gog Magog, you follow a main character named Katie, who is a very old woman who used to ferry people across the river. Is it the River Nisus? I can't remember what the river's name is, but she has transported people across this river to the capital of Ledwich. And she has since retired. She drinks all day and is a crass old lady that I absolutely love. And she is approached by 2 individuals who have to get to the city of Ledwich for reasons you don't know. And she accepts and decides to go on this journey one last time. And the River Ledwich has become very dangerous because it has been inhabited by the ghost of a dragon. And so as you are on this boat with Katie, you get to see all of the different pieces of the dragon and the cities that are encapsulated on the shores of this grand river. It was a lot of fun, and the world was so intricate and I can't wait to figure out what the end of the story is, because I'm pretty sure this is only a duology. Next is Theme Park at the End of the World, which is also being published on December 3rd. I've never heard of this book before. As I was scrolling through Goodreads, I ran across it, and the synopsis just sounds very fun and lighthearted, and so I want to give it a try. It says, "Welcome to the theme park at the end of the world. Magic thrives here. Anything is possible. Working at the park was something Ellie and her friend Cole had always wanted to do. Living there was something she had never dreamed of. Now those vibrant streets and towering rides are a part of her everyday life, along with the food prepared by some of the finest Fae chefs she's ever met. Her new home has brought her laughter, a measure of unpredictability, and unexpected friendships, one being with a war-weary Fae. Yet Ellie soon discovers all is not what it seems." I don't know why, but it gives me the same vibes as a Delegate Dream department store that I just read that I really enjoyed. It sounds whimsical in that way, so fingers crossed that I love it. The last just general fantasy I have for you guys is called The Prophecy of the Yew Tree. I'm not exactly sure if that's how you pronounce it. This is being published on October 19th, and the first line of the synopsis is what got me. It says, "Game of Thrones meets Name of the Wind in this exuberant, character-driven epic fantasy." I don't need anything else. That's what I need. Just in case you guys need more, it says, "Every year prophecy leaves fall from the yew tree, and every year the Dayborn King sends his most trusted servants to collect the leaves and return them to the capital. Only this year, one of the leaves drifted into the unseen forest. 3 lives will forever be changed by this undetected prophecy leaf. The strong-willed daughter of a powerful family, the mysterious and rivaled half-brother of the king, and a talented but unlucky musician desperate to write a song that will bring him good fortune. Looming in the background are reports of the first dragon to appear in over 65 years, and as everyone familiar with their history knows, when dragons appear, royalty dies." I like a good prophecy book, and dragons? Yes, please. The first genre blend category I have for you guys is fantasy romance. I have 3 of these for you. The first is The City in Glass. This is by Niveau, who has written I think it's called the Hillsong series, which is the little series of novellas and lots of other things, but that is why I originally came to this. The first sentence of the synopsis says, "A demon, an angel, a city that burns at the heart of the world." And apparently it's the story of this demon creating a city that is beautiful and magnificent. An angel comes down and ends up burning it all. And they're meant to be like enemies of each other and eternal damnation for one another, but I think they end up falling in love. So we'll see. I'm excited to read from this author again. Next is the Woodsmoke Women's Book of Spells, which is a mouthful. This is going to be published on October 22nd. Part of the synopsis says, "There's an old tale woven through the mountain town of Woodsmoke about a stranger who appears as the first snow falls in winter and who disappears without a trace as the frost thaws in the spring, leaving a broken heart behind. Carrie Morgan ran from Woodsmoke 10 years ago, and the decision has haunted her ever since. Spending a decade painting and drifting around Europe, she tries to forget her family's legacy and the friends she left behind. But the Morgan women have always been able to harness the power of the mountains surrounding the town, and their spells and curses are sown into the soil. The mountains, they say, never forget." It sounds kind of cozy too, so I don't know. I'm excited about it. Next, we have Fang Fiction, which is being published on October 1st. And this doesn't originally seem like a book that I would be interested in, but it has a trope that I enjoy, which is vampires in a modern day society. This says, "She's out for adventure, he's out for blood. The world of your favorite fantasy novels is real and you're invited to visit. The only catch is it's filled with bloodthirsty vampires." I like a vampire set in a modern setting. I don't know why. I like trying to figure out how they live in modern society, if they're pariahs or if they've learned to live within society's norms. And so I think this is going to be a fun time. The last book I have for this category is The Last One by Rachel Hall. Make sure you note the author's name because this was harder for me to find on Goodreads. This is published on December 3rd, and I am intrigued. First, I will say a disclaimer that I think that this is adult, but there are some people on Goodreads who've shelved as YA, so I'm not exactly sure. Maybe it's a situation of being new adult. But this says, thrown into a desolate land of sickness and unnatural beast, Kai wakes in the woods with no idea of who she is and how she got there. All she knows is if she cannot reach the sea of Devour, even this hellscape will get worse. But when she sees the village blacksmith fight invaders with unspeakable skill, she decides to accept his offer of help. Too bad he is as skilled at annoying her as he is at fighting. I'm hoping that this book has some really good banter in it, because that's what it sounds like to me. The next genre blend I have for you guys is fantasy mystery. The first book I have in this genre blend is The Crescent Moon Tea Room, which is published on October 1st. And this sounds like a really cozy fantasy mystery featuring 3 clairvoyant sisters who have had kind of a hard lot in life. I think their parents died pretty young, and they created this tea room where they can bring peace and joy to all of their customers and each other. But some events in the town have happened. I think the main person, like the main magical person in the town, has lost their power, and the sisters start having powers in different ways and growing in different directions, and apparently that is part of their family curse. And so they have to figure out what exactly is happening, why, and then hopefully try and save their little family. Next is called The House of Frank, and this one is being published on October 15th. Sorry, I'm looking down at my notes. I am so excited about this. I haven't heard anyone talk about this, and I think this book is going to be pretty hard for me to find a copy of because I don't think that it is super accessible. Because once again, I haven't seen it in a lot of places. This says, powerless witch Seika is ready to enact her sister's final wish and plant her remains at the famed Ash Gardens. When Seika arrives at the always stormy sanctuary, she is welcomed by its owner, an enormous knit cardiganed mythical beast named Frank, who offers her a role as one of the estate's caretakers. Overcome with grief, Seika accepts, desperate to put off her final farewell to her sister. But the work requires a witch with intrinsic power, and Seika has been disconnected from her power since her sister's death. Seika gets by at the sanctuary using fragments of a fallen star to cast enchantments while hiding the embarrassing truth about herself. As Seika works harder in avoidance of her pain, learns more about Frank, the decaying house at Ash Gardens, and the lives of the motley staff, including a bickering twin cherub, a mute ghost, a cantankerous elf, and an irritating half-witch, among others. Over time, she rediscovers what it means to love and be wholly loved, and how to allow joy and grief to coexist. Warm and inventive, House of Frank is a stirring portrait of the ache of loss and the healing embrace of love. It just sounds so cute! Next is The Teller of Small Fortunes. This is being published on November 5th, and this features an immigrant fortune teller who goes around and only tells small fortunes. So things that are about the weather or inconsequential or supposedly inconsequential acts that will happen in the future lives of her customers. However, she is enlisted by an ex-thief and maybe an ex-mercenary, I think is what it said, in the search for a lost child, and her life becomes a lot more complicated. She originally just has, I think it's her and her mule that travel around doing these fortunes, and with the cast of characters, so the thief, the mercenary, I think they also bring along a magical cat, as shown on the cover. It sounds like a lot of fun. Next, I have historical fantasy, and the first book on this list is The Scholar and the Last Fairy Door, which is published on October 22nd. I actually already have a copy of this book and am already reading it. This is by H.T. Perry, and I can't be more excited to read by this author again. In this book, you follow our main character, Clover Hill, who is a farm girl with aspirations to become more. She wants to be a teacher. She loves to learn, and she really is not the person who wants to stay home and work on the farm. She wants to go and see the world. And this is set in post-World War I. Her brother has gone off to war, and in the war he was grievously injured, comes home, and they realize that it's not a normal injury. He has been injured by fairy magic. And her family, along with most of the world, did not realize that fairies existed and that magic existed. And so it throws her entire family in for a whirlwind. She ends up going off to a magical school to see if she can find a cure for her brother. And there are a whole bunch of political things at play as well in the world. Because of what happened in the war with fairy magic, fairies have been completely locked away from the world. And so there is a little bit of taboo when it comes to searching for fairy information that she has to tackle. And she ends up finding like a found family of of college friends that she's working with. I have absolutely loved my time with this book so far, and I can't wait to finish it. Next is The Improvisers, which is going to be published on November 5th. This says, Velma Fry is many things: a pilot, a former bootlegger, a well-seasoned traveler, a jazz pianist, and a wielder of celestial magic. She also is a member of the Mystic Rhodes family, as well as an investigator for arcane oddities for a magic rights organization, dealing with both simple and complicated cases. And when a pocket watch instigates a magical brawl after one of her flight shows, things become very complicated. It says that she used to bootleg magic, and so I think this is set during Prohibition era, but instead of Prohibition being about alcohol, it's about magic. And I think that sounds fantastic. The last historical fantasy I have for you guys is The Peculiar Garden of Harriet Hunt, which is going to be published on December 3rd. This first caught my attention because Goodreads touts this as a book for lovers of Emily Wilde's and The Magician's Daughter, which I have absolutely love both of those books, and so I'm excited for that. It sounds like this features a daughter whose love is to take care of this magical garden at her family's estate. It's an estate that it is crumbling, and her father dies, which puts her in a bad position because she is set in a time where women by themselves become very vulnerable and can be taken advantage of very quickly. And so she has to figure out how to utilize the magic of her garden in order to protect herself and her family estate. I'm intrigued to see how Harriet uses her garden for her own whims. I love a magical atmosphere, especially one where plants are involved. I don't know if the plants are going to be like something that you can put in like potions or whatnot, or if they're actually going to be like living, breathing things that can move around. I'm not exactly sure, but I want to find out. The next genre blend I have for you guys is fantasy, sci-fi, and the first book I have in this category is And the Sky Bled. This will be published on October 15th. The synopsis, the first paragraph says, amid the chaos of a dying city ruled by colonizers, 3 rivals, a thief, a slumlord, and an heiress, race to find a hidden cache of magic that will decide the city's fate. This cache of magic has something to do with the oil. It's like magical oil, but it rains from the sky. It literally bleeds from the sky, and that's where the magic can be taken from. But there is a drought in this city that has happened for the past 6 months, and so the city is running dry, it is dying, and there is a mystery of some type of magical cache that could potentially save the city or kill it, depending on who gets their hands on it. The second and last book in the sci-fi fantasy category is called The Night Ward, which will also be published on October the 15th. This says it's a debut novel. It is the first in a duology, which I'm excited about, and then it says this is Caribbean mythology meets The Witcher, which I really don't need to know anything else, but it says it introduces a world where women warrior magicians rule, and a child princess and her bodyguard must flee an attempted coup and evade a wave of darkness sent to kill her. I just want to see a warrior magician, like a woman warrior magician. I think that that's going to be amazing, and if there are monsters that this person is fighting, even better. The last fantasy genre blend is fantasy horror, and I wish that I would have been able to find more books in this category, but I am really excited about the one book that I did find, and it is called Strange Beasts. This is probably one of my most anticipated books for the fourth quarter of the year. I can't tell you how excited I am to read this book. This is going to be published on October 15th. This says, in this fresh yet familiar gothic tale, part historical fantasy, part puzzle box mystery, the worlds of Dracula and Sherlock Holmes collide in this thrilling exploration of feminine power. At the dawn of the 12th century in Paris, Samantha Harker, daughter of Dracula's killer, works as a researcher for the Royal Society of the Study of Abnormal Phenomena. But no one realizes how abnormal she really is. Sam is a channel into the mind of monsters, a power that could help her solve the gruesome deaths plaguing the turn-of-the-century Paris, or have her thrown into an asylum. Eee! The next genre that I have for you guys is a mystery thriller. The first of these is The Last One's a Wedding, which is by the same author of Hidden Pictures, which I really enjoyed in the past. This is going to be published on October 8th. This features a father and daughter who are estranged, but the daughter reaches out to the father to invite her to her wedding after many, many years, I think, of not talking, and he wants to make amends. He wants to be part of his daughter's life, shows up, realizes that this is a very fancy wedding. She is essentially marrying a tech billionaire, and he feels a little out of place. And as he starts to get to know the groom's family, he starts to worry more and more about his daughter. It's all I know. It's all I want to know. I think it sounds like a good time. The next is The Puzzle Box, which is also going to be published on October 8th. This is the second book in a series, but I think it's a series of standalone, so I think you can read this book without reading the first. It says, it is the year of the wood dragon, and the ingenious Mike Brink has been invited to Tokyo, Japan, to open the legendary Dragon Box, a mysterious 19th century puzzle that has remained unsolved for 150 years. The box was constructed during one of Japan's most tumultuous periods when the samurai class was disbanded and the shogun lost power. In this moment of national crisis, Emperor Meiji placed a priceless imperial secret in the dragon box, locked it, and hid it in the temple far from the palace. Only 2 people knew how to open the box, Meiji and the box's sadistic constructor, Agua. Both died without telling a soul what was inside or how to open it. I'm game to figure out what's inside. The next book on this list is I Think I Was Murdered, which is going to be published on November 12th. And the only thing I know about this is that it is about a widow, a young widow, who is talking with an AI that has been made to help her be able to move on and grieve. It apparently is set up to talk like her past husband, her late husband, and the AI tells her that he thinks he was murdered. And so that starts the talk of trying to figure out if her husband actually was murdered. I'm excited about this. I like when AI is incorporated into mysteries. I think that this is going to be a lot of fun. Next is The Lake of Lost Girls, which is going to be published on November 5th. This book features 2 college-aged girls, one of which goes missing in like 1990 something, I believe, and then her sister goes to college years later and is trying to solve the mystery of her sister's disappearance. So there are dual timelines, one the girl who goes missing and one her sister who's trying to solve her murder. It also has a podcast involved because her sister that's trying to solve the murder ends up following the investigation on a cold case podcast. So she's using them as information to try and help figure out where her sister went to. Next is Pretty Dead Things, which is going to be published on December 10th. This is also a dual timeline where you follow a girl in a really small town who is about to get married, and she likes to go thrift shopping, and she finds this jar of baubles that she ends up getting. It's very shiny things, and she goes through and finds a wedding ring. Well, little does she know that this wedding ring is tied to a 70-year-old cold case of this girl who's gone missing, and they've never figured out what happened to her, and it leads her into this chaos of trying to solve the disappearance of this 70-year-old crime. Next is Misery Hates Company, which will be published on November 5th. This says a young woman is invited to a mysterious relative's estate and winds up entangled in a murder investigation in this witty historical mystery. I also like the fact that it says, so she goes to this estate, someone is murdered. It says, Marigold finds herself accused. She must enlist the help of eccentric, colorful cast of friends and found family to save herself and everything she holds dear. As secrets are uncovered and lies exposed, the question of who done it turns into who didn't do it. And Marigold must face the truth that shatters her steely poise and shakes her very sense of self. I love a good cast of characters, and found family is my absolutely favorite trope. So I think this is going to be really cute. The last book on the mystery thriller list is an author, or the author's guide to murder, and this is also going to be published on November 5th. This sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. We have a kind of superstar billionaire writer who has bought a castle and uses it as kind of a way to tout his works of literary fiction, and he is murdered. And the detective who is investigating his murder is investigating or interviewing 3 women who are all authors. It says the prime suspects are Kat DeNoir, a slinky, sexy erotica writer, Cassie Pringle, a Southern mom juggling multiple cozy mystery series, and Emma Endicott, a New England blue blood and an author of critically acclaimed historical fiction. The women claim to be best friends writing a historical novel about the castle's lurid past and its lord, so the guy who bought the castle, who himself ended up creatively murdered, but the author's stories about how they know this person don't quite line up, and the detective is getting increasingly suspicious. The next category is horror, and the first book that I have in this category is American Rapture, which is going to be published on October 15th. I actually know nothing about the synopsis, and I'm not going to look it up. This is the same author as Mayfly, which I had a lot of fun with, and so I do want to pick up something else by this author. I'm not sure, because I have read some reviews, and there are talks of animal death in this book, and so I'm not quite sure that's something that I want to read. So I might wait until some more reviews come in, some more people who I know have read it, to figure out whether or not this is one I want to tackle. Next is It Will Only Hurt for a Moment, which is by Delilah S. Dawson, which is the main reason this is on this list. I haven't read anything by this author, but I've heard amazing things, and so that's why I want to pick it up. This will be published on October 22nd, and it is about a girl who ends up going off to this kind of secluded artist retreat is the wrong word, but it's a place where they take away your technology, there's no connection to the outside world, and you just go and make art. And she wants to kind of reconnect with pottery. She's had some things going on in her life that are pretty harsh, and wants to disconnect from her life for a little bit and reconnect with some of her love of creativity. And all of that's fine and well until she finds a dead body, and some of the artists at the retreat are acting a little weird. And I just want to read to you like the paragraph that describes what some of the artists do, because this should be made into a movie. This says, her fellow artists begin to act in troubling ways. The eccentric fiber artist knits an endless scarf. The musician plays the same carousel song over and over until his fingers bleed, and the calligrapher grins with ink-stained teeth, not to mention the haunting dreams that she is having night after night. It sounds spooky, it sounds eerie, and that's what I've heard from this author. I've heard that their writing is very atmospheric, and that's what I'm looking for. Next is Curdle Creek, which is going to be published on October 15th. And this says, welcome to Curdle Creek, a place just dying to make you feel at home, which is already a little ominous. This says, Austria, a 45-year-old widow, is an obedient follower of the strict conventions and practices of Curdle Creek. Curdle Creek is an all-black town in rural America, stuck in the past and governed by sinister rules and rituals practiced in the name of tradition. Austria's luck changes when her children run off. She comes second in the running of widows, and her father flees when his name is called for the annual moving on ceremony. Forced to jump in a well in a test of allegiance, Austria finds herself transported back in time, then into another realm where she must answer for the crimes committed by Curdle Creek. It sounds intense. I like a time travel / realm travel scenario, and it sounds like this town is stuck in some sinister old traditions, and so I think that it's going to be interesting to figure out where the history of the town comes from. Next is Where the Dead Brides Gather. This is going to be published on October the 22nd, and this is a Nigerian set tale. It's about possession, ghosts, family tensions, secrets, and murder. It says, Bada, an 11-year-old girl tormented by nightmares, wakes up one night to find herself standing sentinel before her cousin's door. Her skin, hair, and eyes have turned a dazzling white color, which even the medicine man can't heal. Her cousin is to get married the next morning, but only if she can escape the murderous attack of a ghost bride who used to be engaged to her groom. I also really like the cover. This doesn't look like a horror, but it sounds like one, so we'll see. Maybe it's a cozy horror. Next is Darkly, which will be published on November 26th. And this is by Marcia Pessel, who is the author of Night Film. So that's one of the reasons this is on my list. This is a YA horror. This is about a teenage girl who gets asked to be an intern at a game designer location. This is a game designer. I think it's called Darkly. That's Darkly Games. And the owner of this game design is one of her idols. And the games that this place designs are very dark. They're about toys and mysterious things that are happening, and they're very dark, hence the name Darkly. And the owner, her idol, has mysteriously died. So when she goes in to start this internship, she starts questioning why she's there, why the other kids all seem to be a little secretive, and she thinks that she might be in her own like Darkly game. Like something's happening that's a little mysterious and a little dark within the internship position that she's selected for. So I'm curious about this one. I like the way this author has done cult followings in the past, and I'm not usually a cult person. I don't usually like cult books, but I do like how Night Film incorporated this cult following of one of the characters. I think it's very intriguing how this author goes about that. The last book in the horror category is Coup de Grace, which is going to be published on October 1st. The synopsis says, Vicken has a plan, throw himself into the St. Lawrence River in Montreal and end it for good, believing that there's no way out for him after a lifetime of depression and pain. But stepping off the subway, he finds himself in an endless looping station. Determined to find a way out again, he starts to explore the rooms and corridors. But no matter how claustrophobic the hallways or vast cathedral-esque rooms he passes through, there's no exit in sight. The more he explores his strange new prison, the more he becomes convinced that he hasn't been trapped there accidentally, and amongst the shadows and concrete, he comes to realize that he almost certainly is not alone. I love like a trapdoor horror, and so this sounds right up my alley. The next category is sci-fi, and I have 2 books for this list. The first is Remember You Will Die, which is going to be published on October 22nd. This one I am hesitant about. It doesn't have super great ratings so far on Goodreads, but I love a mixed media book, and this says something that intrigues me. A search, a puzzle, 60 protagonists, all of whom are dead, told entirely through obituaries, which is the part about mixed media that I'm intrigued with, and ricocheting through time. This book is an innovative, genre-bending epic about the messy tapestry of human history and the threads that connect us all. This is told through the eyes of Peregrine, who is an AI mother grappling with the unexpected death of her human daughter, Poppy. So once again, we have AI mixed with sci-fi, and somehow the entire story is told through the obituaries of these people who've died. I'm interested, but I'm not convinced yet. The next is The Ancients, which is going to be published on October 15th. And this book follows 3 different, I don't think they're timelines, I think it's just 3 different POVs. You have the children who have been abandoned in their village and are in search for their parents and the last of their people across this devastated land. You have one of the children's parents who has been kind of sold off into slavery, who is trying to escape, and then you have a scholar who is kind of in a privileged position. And the end of the synopsis says, with a rapidly changing climate, shifting sands beneath their feet, these 3 paths converge in a struggle for the future of humanity. Who will inherit what remains, and who gets to tell its story? An epic of a distant future, a post-apocalyptic vision of hope and optimism, The Ancients weaves a multi-layered narrative about human resilience, hope, and stewardship of our world for future generations. It almost sounds like the understory or the overstory, which I read a little bit ago, but with maybe a little bit more sci-fi elements. I'm not sure, but I am curious. The last category I have for you guys is an anthology category, which I only have 1 book for, and that is Monsters and Masquerade. This is going to be published on December 16th, and I am really excited about this. I don't normally read anthologies, but this one sounds really fascinating. It says, in these pages, myths are reborn, monsters roam unchecked, and love flickers as the only light in the dark. This haunting collection of 16 stories weaves together myth, horror, and romance, each tale designed to linger long after the last page. I love like myths and horror mixed in, and the fact that they have this little bit of romance that maybe can cast a little bit of light within the pages. I'm intrigued. So that is my very long list of 34 anticipated releases for you. I do not think that this video is going to be as short as my other anticipated releases, because I do think that I was talking a bit more just from the amount of footage that I know that I have. So I hope you guys found this informative. I hope you found some reads that you are interested in. If I missed any that you were really excited about, please leave them in the comments down below. I would love to add to my list of potential books to pick up in the near future or far future if I can't get to them this year. But if you don't feel like being chatty, just leave a little stack of books so I know that you're here in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.